Hey everyone, good morning. This is David Chalk. We're going through Lesson 3 of The Way of the Heart. This should be our last one on Lesson 3. And before we start, just inviting you to take in the attitude of welcoming what is. Whatever thoughts are running through the mind, whatever sensations you're having in the body. We kind of have two choices. We can be unconscious to them or try to bring attention through observation. And the easiest way, perhaps, to enter into observer mind, which Joshua at one point refers to as the all healing, is the transition into observer mind. He says identification with self as observer instead of identification with self as reactor. Small mind, ego mind is the reactor, and higher mind, Christ mind, is the observer. I'm paraphrasing slightly there, but that's the basic idea. We're going to go back. I'm just going to go back a couple of paragraphs because he switches gears to releasing the day as opposed to talking about forgiveness. Most of the lesson's about forgiveness. And then at the very end, he goes into this process of releasing the day and how important it is to do so. In a sense, forgiving the day, letting it be sufficient unto itself. If you want to find the paragraph that begins with, "It is very, very important to let each day," we're going to start there. And just taking a nice breath and the intention to truly hear and listen and learn, because we are not beings in the current state that we're in who have access to all the information. So teachings such as this, that perhaps this more than any in my experience, bring this connection with higher intelligence, higher wisdom, higher knowing. And what we follow in those ways obviously is based on trust. What makes sense for us, what bears good fruit especially. And that takes time to discern. All right, starting with the text. "It is very, very important to let each day be sufficient unto itself. That is, when you end your day, always truly end it. It does not, and do not take 4 hours of ritual. You can do it within one breath. As you take a deep breath, as you rest your head upon the pillow, look upon the whole day, embrace it within your consciousness, or with your consciousness, and as you let your breath go out, say with your consciousness, I release and forgive this day. It has been perfect and it is done. Let it go, just let it go. Why? Because if you don't, you'll bring it with you. Know you that experience, and for 3 weeks later you're going, oh gosh, why did I make that decision 3 weeks ago? If only I would have made a different decision, this wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened. That's probably true, but the point is now, 3 weeks later, you're still hitting yourself over the head by bringing the past with you. And you miss the glory of the present. You've all heard that 1,000 times because it's the truth. Consciousness is a very subtle and powerful thing. You cannot help but create. Remember, the goal this year is to learn to deliberately create with perfect mastery. Therefore, look upon the things of the day and say, it is very good, and it is finished. Let each night, when you rest your head upon the pillow and you know you're about to go off to sleep, be just like God was in the story, your biblical story of creation, in which it is written that on the seventh day God rested. God was finished, in a sense, within the story. And have that same quality at the end of each of your days. If you're carrying some kind of emotional reaction because of something someone said or did, or whatever, or something you said or did, practice forgiveness before you sleep. Because if you don't, you will keep experiencing the conflicted energies during your dream states, and communication between you and the other one, who has not yet been forgiven, will keep on going on until that forgiveness is complete within you. I hope that makes sense to you because it's very important. Time should never be taken frivolously. Play with it, yes, but play with it out of consciousness, out of clarity, out of recognizing that there is no such thing as an idle thought. Each thought creates a world of experience for you, and you are worthy of experiencing heaven. We will have much more to say about forgiveness as we begin to plummet the depths of what is discovered as you practice forgiveness 70 times 7. It takes you deeper and deeper into the very mechanics of consciousness itself, the very mechanics of creation. Forgiveness. Put it at the top of your list until you know how perfectly forgiven you are. Be you therefore vigilant against denying what is still in need of forgiveness within you. For what you deny you will project, and each projection is a hurtful act to yourself. Also to the other, of course, but to yourself. We'll end that, end paragraph. You are worthy of experiencing heaven. It'd be nice to just take him at his word on that, hey? A lot of people might not feel that way. We're worthy of experiencing heaven. Each thought creates a world of experience for you. So this really, he's saying it can feel like a burden, this idea that we're creating all the time, and each thought is meaningful because each thought has the capacity to create a world of experience. He talks in Course in Miracles about learning and about becoming a happy learner. I think that once we take responsibility for the first axiom and that we are creating our worlds with our thinking, I think it becomes easier once we stop fighting that idea and just say, oh, okay, well, here I am. I mean, when can I practice that? Here's right now, each thought. A time should never be taken frivolously. Play with that out of consciousness, out of clarity. And he makes it clear that forgiveness prior to sleep is very important. Letting the day go. I think my grandmother used to say, never go to bed angry, that's let the day be what it was, and you got a new day tomorrow, and so give that one a fair chance to succeed on its own without carrying the baggage from yesterday. And I like put forgiveness at the top of your list until you know how perfectly forgiven you are. Be you therefore vigilant against denying what is still in need of forgiveness within you. And that's a really important line. So forgiveness can be seen in many ways to be the practice itself, the entirety of the spiritual path. We're not creating something so much as we're remembering something. There's a statement that's very powerful in the Way of Mastery. All evolution is remembrance. God created us complete and whole and holy, and there is nothing that needs to be completed or evolved towards for us to be complete. We're already complete. We're just remembering that through this process of encountering the things that we've allowed to live in our minds, the unforgiving thoughts, the unloving thoughts, and allowing them to be healed. And as they're healed, that which is already there begins to be revealed and remembered and allowed. So it's helpful, I think, to think that, we're not these incomplete beings trying to find completion. We're already complete. We've used that completion to create a certain experience in which we've forgotten much, including much about ourselves. And it's those things that need to be forgiven and released back so that we can return to the truth. Returning to the truth sounds like a good idea to me. So let's get back to the text. We're going to wrap up lesson 3 here in the text. So we will let that be enough for now. There has been much that has been said in this hour that needs to be listened to again and yet again, so that the awareness begins to truly grasp how important and how powerful forgiveness is. You will reach a place in which you absolutely delight in going through your day experiencing forgiveness, like a wave emitting from the ocean of your consciousness, even if nobody is doing anything. Forgiveness itself becomes a delightful energy to live within. Indeed, therefore, beloved friends, forgive you well yourself, and you have forgiven Christ. And when Christ is forgiven, Christ will rise and make his home in your heart and in your mind, and even in the cells of your body. and you will know what it means to walk in this world, yet not be of this world. And when you look in the mirror, you will say, behold, the Savior appears. It will not be egoic arrogance that says it, but the recognition of what is true always. I am my Father's child, and I am sent into this world to bring light into it. So, be you therefore at peace, practice forgiveness well, until it becomes like taking a breath. And you will discover power that you didn't know could exist, and a freedom whose taste is sweet above honey. I forgive you. It says laughs in the text, so I'm not going to mimic his laugh, but I forgive you, not because I've judged you, but because I know the blessing that forgiveness brings to me. Forgiveness is something I perfected as a man. Perfect it within yourself as well, and you will know the glory of Christ. Be you therefore at peace, beloved friends. Amen. End of text. Well, he emphasizes the need to go over Lesson 3 many times. And as I was sharing during the progression of these videos, as a student of this teaching for many years, quarter of a century, as I go back and look at these earliest lessons, I'm struck by how each paragraph has just foundational pieces that will be returned to over and over again. The essence and essential nature of the pathway. Forgiveness is just the crucial part of the pathway, and it's so different from what we've been led to believe it is. I think that it's worth going back to just looking at his definition of forgiveness. And forgiveness is not when you are forgiving the world for something it has done to you. That's kind of a big deal. Forgiveness is forgiveness of the self for having projected onto the world. And these are lessons that I do invite you to go back and look at over and over again. In forgiveness is the path to mastery. Forgiveness is essential, and what has not been forgiven others has not been forgiven you. He says a beautiful thing here, not by a God that sits outside of you, for the Father never judges. There's a really important one. A lot of people think that God judges, but if judgment creates separation and judgment creates weakness, which it does, then how could God ever judge? It's we that judge, and we are weakened by it. The exact definition of forgiveness. For you see, to forgive means, quote, to choose to release another from the perception that you've been projecting upon them. It is therefore an act of forgiving oneself of one's projections. It's quite early on in the lesson. That's one that we were worth writing down and committing to memory. Forgiveness means to choose to release another from the perceptions that you've been projecting upon them. It is therefore an act of forgiving oneself of one's projections. So if you're angry with someone, or you hate someone, or somebody really annoys you, or you wish you had nothing to do with them before, again, or ever, that's where the action is. You're projecting onto them because you have to be if you're seeing something other than love, if only love is real. And therefore, forgiving, which is the essential key to the awakening process, it could be said, forgiving is an act of forgiving oneself of one's projections. It's really important, powerful stuff. After Lesson 3, Joshua goes into what are called the keys to the kingdom, and we'll be starting that with Lesson 4. But these 3 first lessons are so enormous and so extraordinary. Lesson 2, you may recall, had some very specific practices, and they took some time and energy. Lesson 3, you might notice, there's not really a practice in there, but there is, and I invite you to actually consider it to be one of the practices of the pathway, which is the process of forgiveness before going to bed. If you haven't been trying that yet, as we've been reading this, we just got to that part of the text yesterday, or recently, the previous video. But you might want to really say, oh, right, it's easy to slip by and say, oh, there isn't a practice in Lesson 3. And the practices in the Way of Mastery aren't like in the Way of and with Course in Miracles where, every day I know I've got to practice. they're not like that. They're a little more subtle to find and to identify. But forgiving the world, forgiving the day prior to going to bed, practicing forgiveness before going to sleep. Here's the thing. Let each night when you rest your head on the pillow, when you know you're about to go off to sleep, be just like God was in the beginning. Practice forgiveness before going to bed. So that's an actual lesson. If you're carrying some kind of emotional reaction because something said or did, or whatever, or something you said or did, practice forgiveness before you sleep. So that's a beautiful lifetime practice. It does, as he says, it can be done just in a single breath. But perhaps in your studentship and study of Lesson 3 of the Way of Mastery, the Way of the Heart, if that's not something that's already in your daily practice, here's an opportunity to start it and let this be the origin of that for you. Lesson 3, Way of the Heart, a beautiful lesson. We'll probably wrap it up there. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be getting on to Lesson 4 soon. Lesson 4 is great. It describes the keys to the kingdom, and then we really start kicking into gear. Not just laying the foundation, but moving forward. Thanks for listening. This is David Chalk. If you want, some of these are going to be on jeshuaspeaks.com. That's my website for all these teachings, and also for the channeling work I do. So Jeshua, Jeshua, speaks.com. Thanks again. Bye for now.